Welcome to the August 14th edition of Colorado Inside Out Postgame, a special web-exclusive production here on Channel 12. Let's get a quick take on marijuana activists turning in twice the amount of needed signatures earlier this week for a Denver ballot measure for this November's election. The proposal would ask if the use of marijuana in bars and other businesses by vaping or consuming edibles should be allowed in Denver. Assistant City Attorney David Broadwell says the issue would create a conflict with state law. Pat Cahoon from Westward. Did the pot proponents put themselves in a corner because of how they wrote the first bill that turned into part of the Colorado Constitution?
Well, that will be a challenge for the courts at some point if this passes, and I think it will in Colorado. What they will explain is that it's not like you can smoke because the Clean Air Act overrules everything on that. So it'll be only restaurants and bars that choose to opt in and allow the consumption. The argument will be, is it in public or not? It would be vaporizers, vapes, it would be edibles. It is not going to be anyone smoking pot. I guess the argument would be if you've got a smoking area outside, they would still have to deal with that. But I think Coloradans were amazed, or people coming to Colorado are amazed to suddenly discover they can go buy this wonderful stuff, but they can't use it anywhere. So, and I think people in Denver would like to be able to go to a bar and use their vape rather than, say, have 5 beers. And they could be in good company. So I think it will pass. Then the question will be who will challenge it to see if the definition of public consumption in the state constitution, which we voted in 2012, overrides this.
David Kopel from the Independence Institute and DU Law School. I understand the argument made by Assistant City Attorney David Broadwell, but I'm wondering just about the general flow of public opinion. Do you think Denver's at a place where they would approve this, even if there's a legal challenge, or is it a step too far for the citizens of Denver?
They may be blocked by the state constitution. That's, after all, how it got approved statewide in the first place, was having limits be there. My guess is, just on the policy aspect, the voters of Denver would favor it, because as Patty said, it's not going to be, if you limit it to bars and places like that, if you don't want to see people eating a brownie or vaping, you don't have to. We're not talking about saying it's okay to do it while you're walking down the mall or anything else like that. So it would be good economically. Denver has long, by the voters, when they, years ago in the Hickenlooper administration, they ordered that marijuana enforcement for just possession by adults be the lowest police priority. So I think, and Denver's doing well financially, economically, in part because, unlike some other jurisdictions, they've chosen to allow the businesses to exist here. And again, that's the Constitution allows communities to have that choice. Denver's taken the pro-prosperity approach to things. So my guess is this would have a good chance of passing.
Penn Tate, attorney at Greenberg Traurig, also a longtime state lawmaker. Even if Denver does pass this, do you see this as something that would set any trends for other cities, or is Denver kind of an outlier in this situation?
I think Denver will be an outlier initially. I can see certain communities, select communities around the state, probably following suit and putting some issues on the ballot for their constituents to vote on. But I'm not so convinced Denver voters are going to vote for this. There is something about the attitude, or perhaps the culture, that says we think it ought to be legal, we think it ought to be decriminalized. It's the sort of thing you do in the comfort and privacy of your house and or apartment, but we don't necessarily want a bunch of people doing it in restaurants, whether it's edibles or vaping. This is going to be, I think, a really key test to see just where the community is on this, what's been a political social issue for so many decades in this country, to what's now perhaps one of just managing a lawful activity like we do alcohol consumption and a host of other things. But I'm not convinced this measure is going to pass in Denver. It'll be interesting to see.
Ed Seelever with the Denver Business Journal. I know this wouldn't be affected by lawmakers. This is just a Denver ballot measure going strictly to the voters. But do you think that there would be any movement to adjust the current law to open it up a little bit if Denver voters want to see this happen?
It's a good question. I mean, having the largest city in the state do this is more of a kicking point than if you had, say, a mountain town doing this. But I don't hear a lot of that right now. And I think most of the bills that you've seen going through in the last couple of years have been more about making sure the regulatory structure is in place. And if anything, maybe cracking down on things a little bit when it comes to labeling, et cetera. I don't know that this is going to create a full hog push for people to go out and say, no, there's this growing movement to have these things be allowed in bars across the area. And I'm gonna agree with Penn on this one. I'm not sure this passes either. First of all, it's great that they got double the amount of signatures that they got, or whatever it was. But let's not forget, it was just 4 years ago we saw citizens gather signatures for an initiative to require paid sick leave in Denver, and that fell 2-1 at the ballot in Denver. So just getting it on doesn't mean you're going to be able to pass it. I think there's also a question, and it's interesting working with the business leaders. They've never been against the idea of legalized marijuana or even the consumption of it. It's the reputation that Denver gets and that Colorado gets because we're legalized that they worry about. And I think people might look at this the same way. It's one thing to legalize marijuana in this very libertarian streak that we have in Colorado. But now I hear people, even who have supported legalized marijuana, saying, these guys seem to be pushing it and, are loosening the restrictions going to do further harm to Colorado's reputation in terms of a place you want your workers to be. So I think this is not a shoo-in that this will pass.
Well, that's all the time we have for Colorado Inside Out postgame this week. Leave us a comment, tell us what you think. For everyone here at CPT12.org, I'm Dominic Dezzutti. Thanks for watching.